So, Content Marketing Institute, they did a study where they surveyed people in our industry and asked us what were the biggest problems that we faced. And these are the top three from number 1 to number 3. Lack of time, number 1 problem that we face in our industry. We don't feel like we have enough time to do what we need to do. Number 2, the ability to produce enough content. And number 3, the ability to produce content that engages. So what I want to know is, like, why are those the top 3? And I think they're all related, and I think this is the reason why. So you've got the boss, right? The boss can be the CEO, the CMO, your client, your own expectations, and so this is like an internal conflict, right? The boss says to the marketer, give me views, give me clicks, give me the dress. Like, I want viral content. That's what I want. So I want to break down this idea of viral content. Viruses, what we're trying to say is it spreads like a virus, right? But viruses spread against the will of the user, right? The virus doesn't care whether or not the recipient wants to get a cold. The recipient gets a cold, and they spread it whether they want to spread it or not. And when we use the term viral, we're talking only about how fast it spreads, but we're not acknowledging at all the will of the people who are consuming the content or the desires and hopes and dreams of the people consuming it and spreading it. So I think that this term is causing us to focus on the wrong things to create actual viral content. So under this new mandate to create viral content and get views and an ROI and all that good stuff, we go to work and create our content. And I've done this a lot. I know a lot of us do it. Right before we hit publish, we kneel down, we say a little prayer, and we say, dear marketing gods, please let this be the one that goes viral. And we send our baby off into the universe, right? This can be our article or infographic or whatever. And of course, because we're aiming for virality, we miss our target. And instead of trying to re-aim, we often do a shotgun approach and just do more of it. And so we end up creating more videos, blog posts, white papers, infographics. Because of that, 60 to 70% of B2B content goes entirely unused. And this includes content created for the sales team. But think of all the time and effort that you put into creating your content, only to have it sit on a server somewhere, never to be seen by another human being ever again. What like a tremendous waste in our industry. Because of that, only 9% of marketers actually feel strongly agree that their marketing work is working, and only half of marketers feel highly proficient in their job. Like, that's sad. Only half of our industry feels highly proficient. What if only half of surgeons felt highly proficient in their jobs? There'd be a lot of dead people, right? That'd be a problem. And I think this is a problem in our industry. And I think all of these tie back to this one right here, which is the ability to produce content that engages. Right now we're in this vicious cycle sometimes where because we don't have enough time, we feel like we have to do more content and we're not producing content that engages. And so it creates this vicious cycle. However, if we can create content that engages, suddenly we don't have to do as much of it. And if we don't have to do as much, we have more time in our hands that we can reinvest in producing content that is even better at engaging. And it creates this virtuous cycle. So Ad Age did this study over, they analyzed a bunch of brands over a long period of time, a couple of years, and they said in the last 12 months, the brands that they analyzed produced 3 times more content than they did in the previous 12 months. And yet, despite producing 3 times more content, the total engagement, which is likes, shares, and traffic, estimated traffic, remained the exact same, despite a 3x increase in total content. And 5% of the content that they measured generated 90% of the total. So this is even, like, we've heard the 80-20 rule. This is the 5-90 rule. Like, this is way off. And so the question becomes, how do we create that 5% and stop wasting our time on the other 95%? So let's think about that problem for a second and go over to this analogy. And I know that the human brain does not work like this. Like, we don't have an analytical, the left side is analytical, the right side is creative. But I think it's a good illustration for how our minds work and how we are as people, right? We do have some analytical tendencies and some more creative tendencies. So, and I think both of these halves of ourselves go together in producing content, but we need to use both. If we only use the analytical side of our brains, right, the only data, and we produce content without engaging the creative side, well, that's where we get like white papers and the really boring content that you find all over the web that is really difficult to read and analyze. If, however, you only engage the creative side and don't engage data, you get what I call the Kobe Bryant effect. We had a group of interns years ago, and this is the dumbest idea, and you'll learn why it was a dumb idea. But we took all the interns, we put them all in a room together, which you already know why, like, this is dumb. Put them all in a room together, and we said, all we want you to do is just come up with cool ideas, guys. Just give us your coolest ideas. And then we could take those cool ideas and turn them into big campaigns. Well, one intern came in and was like, okay, what we got to do? We need to get Kobe Bryant. He's going to be dunking on a billboard, right? And we're going to put this one billboard right here on the busiest freeway in our town, right? Okay, first of all, dude, Kobe Bryant will not do that. If he does, do you have any idea of how much that would cost? Third, if you can get Kobe Bryant to do that and you can pay for it, you're going to put him on one billboard? Like, that's nuts. So he wasn't engaging the data. He didn't care about the data. He just thought, what do I think would be cool? And went. And that's not his fault, right? We basically asked for this. So we need to engage both halves. And so I think really good marketing comes from consuming data, letting that process in our brains, engaging that creative side of ourselves, and then producing content. And my theory is that if you're not producing good content that engages, the answer is to consume more data. And if you're stumped, if you're stuck, right, you just need to consume more data, and the answers will present themselves. David Ogilvy, awesome advertiser, prolific writer. Like, I admire a lot about him. I actually don't know about his personal life, so I have the caveat of if he did anything weird, I don't admire that part. But his business life, I admire that. David Ogilvy said, big ideas come from the unconscious, but your unconscious has to be well-informed or your idea will be irrelevant. So stuff your conscious mind with information, then unhook your rational thought process, right? It's that same idea of stuffing your brain full of data and then letting go and creating cool content, but based in that data that you've consumed. So there's this part of us that David Ogilvy describes, the unconscious, right? That part is always chewing on the information that we consume. This is where gut decisions come from. We have debates often in our office about whether or not decisions should be made on gut or on data. And I think there's good sides for both. But my argument that I think trumps the gut argument is gut arguments are based in data. We're just consuming data so much that we don't even realize it. And when we have a gut feeling, it's because of some pieces of data that we weren't aware we consumed. And it just makes sense to us, right? So anyway, that's my argument there for data. Content Marketing Institute did a study, or just released this research, 2019 B2B content marketing. 56% of the respondents reported that they increased spending in content creation over the past 12 months, and only 37% reported increased spending in content marketing staff and 36% in content distribution. So clearly, increases in budget for content marketing in general, but most of it is going towards content creation. So we're not getting as many people to do it, and yet we have more budget to manage, which I think is the golden scenario for people who are doing content marketing. We have more money than we have ever had before, and we will have more money in 10 years than we have ever had before. So I think this is what a content marketer should be. A content marketer should be Robin Hood. A content marketer should think about, what does my audience want first? And then how can I figure out how to get my business what it wants by giving my audience what they want? We have it flipped too often, where we say, how do I need to sell? I need to sell more widgets. So how can I get my audience to buy more of those? I say forget that. Think about what your audience wants. You have all this money. How can you make their lives better, create awesome content for them? And then once you have that, then figure out, okay, how can I make money now that I've figured this part out, right? I think that's much more healthy for us as content marketers. So the question becomes, how do we figure out what it is they want? And that's where the data comes in. How can we tap into this source of data? Because the worst thing that we do as marketers, as business owners, frankly, as just people, is we think about what we think and apply that to the rest of everyone else, right? It doesn't matter what I think, because I am not my market. It doesn't matter what my past experience is, because that's not the past experience of my market, right? So I need to tap into as much data as I can to broaden my field of vision, to increase my bubble, right? And so how do we do that? So I'm going to go through 3 different tactics of how to do that. There's obviously hundreds of tactics to do, but these are some really cool ones, and I want to be as actionable as possible so that you can go home today and start doing some of this stuff. I have some tools I'll share with you, as well as like a template that I put together that you can get access to. So first tactic, search data. Google, this applies to lots of different areas. Obviously, it applies to SEO because we're analyzing like keyword data here. But it applies to so much more. I have a friend who did exactly what I'm about to share with you, and he found that there were a group of people in Arizona searching for waxing salons, and there were no good waxing salons in Arizona. There was a huge gap in that market, and he found that through this process I'm going to share with you. And he now owns the largest chain of waxing salons in Arizona. And this is like a 35-year-old hairy dude. He's never set foot inside a waxing salon before, but he cared more about what the audience wanted, not what he thought would be a good idea. So Google gets over 1 trillion queries a year, and every year, 15% of those queries have never been typed before in the history of mankind. So that means that this is going to be a never-ending well of data for us to build content on. So what we need to do, and this is very, very high level, so don't bother taking a picture of this. This is really basic. I'm going to get basic, or have basic and then get more complex. So in general, what we want to do is pull data on thousands of keywords. And what data do we need? We need volume, suggested bid, and difficulty score. Volume is obvious, like how much does that get searched for on average every month? Bid is like suggested bid for PPC. This gives us an indication of how valuable it is. It's not dollar for dollar. It doesn't matter exactly what the actual number is, but we can assume that higher suggested bid, that traffic is going to be more valuable and more likely to convert. And then difficulty is how difficult is it to rank for that keyword. Pretty simple. So we pull all that data. Then we need to sort through all that data, which is the difficult part, because you should be, if you're doing this correctly, you should be pulling data on 80,000, 100,000, 150,000 keywords. So how can you possibly sort through all of that? But what you need to do, and this is what the template is for, sort through that and then group keywords based off of a common theme, and boom, that's your next piece of content, that's your next landing page, that's even your next product. We did this exercise with a group. I teach a class at BYU, a college intro to SEO and analytics class, and this group was doing a project in another class where they had to start a business, and they were doing belts. They were making them out of rubber. We did this exercise, and we found that there was a lot of volume around words related to the word ski belt. I did not realize that there are belts specifically designed for skiing, but they're all made out of rubber, and there are no good results for it. So lots of people go to Google and type ski belt, and there aren't any good results. So they changed their whole product to be, they were no longer just a belt, they were a ski belt specifically, and now they rank for a ton of stuff related to ski belts. So this allowed them to identify a really cool hole in the market, take advantage of it, and twist their business to use that, and help people find what they're looking for. So there's a summary of the really basic stuff. So here's what it looks like in execution. Lots of cool tools. What I'm going to share with you is tool agnostic. The template that I'll give you guys will work with any set of tools. I like SpyFu because it's so fast, and I like to share it when I speak because it's also really cheap. If you're not currently investing in software for this, this is like $30 a month, super cheap, and it gets you everything you need. So with SpyFu, Ahrefs, though, is probably my favorite. It's more comprehensive, but way more expensive, like 7 times more expensive. So SpyFu, you click SEO research, SEO keywords, it brings you to this section. And then what we need to do is, if we're Acorns, for example, we're going to take Acorns URL, pop it into SpyFu, let it run, and it runs within seconds, export that data into a CSV. And what that you can see here, it gives us the keywords, every keyword that Acorns ranks for. It gives us the cost per click, the difficulty, and searches per month. So that's all the data that we need in one go. You export that as a CSV, set it aside. Now, what we need to do, and is next obvious step, is get competitors involved. So in this case, Betterment, Stash, Robinhood, all competitors to Acorn. I'm going to pop each one of them into SpyFu and get every keyword that all of my competitors rank for. Export those as a CSV, set them aside. Now, the real magic, this is the thing nobody does, find micro publishers in your industry. And I say micro, like if you're Acorns, do not put Forbes in. Because if you put Forbes in there, you're going to get 300,000 terms, 90% of them are totally irrelevant to your business, right? So find micro publishers. In this case, the penny hoarder. Like the people who read penny hoarder are doing micro investing. They're the kind of people who would work with Acorns. Same with Mr. Money Mustache. So these are great micro publishers. Pop them in. The reason that these are great is because these guys make their money off of traffic. And to get traffic, they need to make content. So they're doing nothing, but all day they're just racking their brains, what can I write about next? And they're writing about one piece and another piece. Like, they're churning out tons of content, trying to find what people want. And as a result, they rank for a bunch of weird keywords that you would never have thought of. And this will unearth a bunch of cool opportunities. So put in these publishers. You need to maintain position data for your own client or for you. But we don't need to maintain that for everyone else. But what you want to do is combine all that data. And I have a webinar on all the details on this, so don't worry about like absorbing every single step. You combine all the data, remove duplicates, and then you plug it into this template, which I'll give you access to. And what this does is it color codes each cell based on how it compares to the rest of the cells in that column. The reason that's super important is because each industry varies in terms of what is a good keyword by volume, bid, or difficulty, and which isn't. So for example, I did work for a long time in food storage. If you had a keyword that brought in 500 searches a month, like that's a money keyword. But I've also done work for Capital One, and we're not even touching anything that's below 10,000 searches a month because the volume for all their keywords is so high. So this allows you to get rid of that like relative bias depending on your industry. So what this does is it counts if it's green, and if it's green, it means this is in the top 70% for that metric. If it's green in all three columns, it gives it a 1 here. So all you need to do is plug it in, let the thing run. It's going to take a while to run because there's lots of formulas running in here. And then you sort by first opportunity and instantly takes every keyword that is in the top 70% for each of these three important metrics and puts it at the top. Then all you need to do as a marketer is decide which of these keywords are relevant to my business and which aren't. You're no longer deciding what do I think would be a good keyword. Any keyword research method that starts with, well, just write out a brainstorm. That's a terrible way to start keyword research because you're relying on your own experience in your own brain. Get rid of that. Rely on the data. Let that make the decisions.